Hi, everybody. My name is Semhal Tsegaye. I'm a development professional from the US. I'm currently living and working in Bangkok, and I'm very happy to be here with you today for this summit. I think it's very important that the younger generation talks about climate change and water issues because these are very important issues for the future. So I'm happy to be part of this conversation with you today. So today in this presentation, I hope to kind of give you more information about what water scarcity looks like in Jordan, which is a country in the Middle East that I lived in for a couple of years and has a lot of issues around water scarcity, basically not having enough water. So hopefully this presentation will give you some helpful information about what that looks like. So for those of you who are not familiar with Jordan, it's a country in the Middle East which shares its borders with other countries like Palestine, Syria, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. It has two kind of major rivers, one called the Yarmouk River and one called the Jordan River. It shares these rivers with Israel and Syria, but one of the issues for Jordan is that it's actually lower down on those rivers than Israel and Syria are. So that means that those countries can kind of take more water from those rivers before it gets to Jordan. So that's kind of one issue that Jordan faces with water scarcity is that its rivers are basically running out of water. On the right side, you see this map of the world that shows countries that are facing water stress, which basically means that they don't have enough water for what they need. So the countries in yellow kind of have less issues with water, so they're in a better situation. But the countries in orange and red are more water stressed. And among those countries, you can see a lot of them are in the Middle East, and Jordan is the fifth most water stressed country in the world, which means that it really does not have enough water for what it needs, and it could actually lead to Jordan running out of water in the future if some solutions are not made for that issue. So you might be wondering why exactly Jordan has so much issues with water, and one of the reasons is just climate change. So climate change in Jordan can act in two particular ways that relate to water, and one is that the temperature is getting hotter and hotter over time, which means that the water in the rivers basically dries up. It evaporates a lot faster because it's hotter. So in this picture, you can see that this is a picture of the Jordan River, and you can see that a lot of the water is gone now. It's dried up, and part of the reason for that is the rising temperatures because of climate change. And as well, Jordan does not have that much rain basically every year. So for example, Prague every year gets about 500 millimeters of rainfall, and the capital city of Jordan, Amman, gets about 245 millimeters per year of rainfall. So it's a very dry country, and it doesn't get enough rain to kind of fill its rivers again. So one of the things that people do to kind of get more water because the rivers are running out of water is they take it from underneath the ground, and we call that groundwater. So basically they pump water from underneath the earth to use it. But the issue with groundwater is that it actually does not renew itself very quickly. So basically when you take water out of the ground, it's very hard for that water to be replaced. So it's not really a sustainable solution in the long term. And a lot of people worry that if Jordan continues to pump water from the ground at the rate that they are doing it right now, that water could maybe disappear by 2060, which is not that far away. It's only 40 years away. So that's one of the challenges that Jordan is facing at the moment. Another reason that Jordan is water stressed is because of political challenges. So as you saw on the map earlier, it shares its borders with countries like Syria, Iraq, and Palestine, which have all had significant conflicts in recent history, which have forced people in those countries to run away, and a lot of them have run to Jordan. So as you can see in this chart, which has different countries which take in refugees, After Lebanon, which is also a country in the Middle East, Jordan is the second country in the world that takes in the most refugees in relation to how many people it already has. So basically, the population is growing quite fast in Jordan. And what that means for the water supply is basically, as you have more people in the country, that puts more pressure on the water system, because obviously those people need to use more water. So this is also one of the challenges that makes that puts Jordan in kind of a tough position in terms of water stress. And a third major reason that Jordan is facing water stress is because of its water pipes. So basically, these are the pipes which are used to move water between cities. But the issue is that a lot of these pipes are old and leaking water. So you can see on the left the image of like what the pipe should look like, basically. And on the right, there's a picture of this water pipe kind of leaking and letting all of the water that's in the pipe basically go into the ground. And so there are some people who estimate that Jordan loses about 76 billion liters every year just because of the old pipes. And that's enough water to kind of supply 2.6 million people per year with water. So it's a huge amount of water that is being lost just because the pipes are old and really need to be fixed and repaired, but that has not happened yet. So it's just wasting a lot of water because of the pipes. So in terms of what this water scarcity looks like in everyday life in Jordan, one simple example is that basically every house or apartment gets a water tank that is filled up with water every week. So on the left side, you can see this picture of what the water tanks look like. They go like on the roof of every apartment building or every house. And a truck that looks like this one on the right comes every week and basically refills the water tank. So you kind of have a ration of water that your house has to try not to consume more than that every week. It is for me, for example, I never ran out of water because I was careful about not wasting water. But it is possible that you can use all of the water in your tank, and then you have to pay a lot of money for that truck to come and refill your water on a day which they don't plan to, or you just don't have water for the rest of your week until they come back. So basically, this is just a way of making sure that people are not using so much water to kind of limit the water that people have per week. Jordan is also, it's quite serious about wasting water. It's actually technically a crime to waste water in Jordan. So for example, watering your garden or using water to clean your sidewalk or to clean the streets, it's technically illegal in Jordan. So you can be, like, if you do this multiple times and you're caught, then after a few times, they can actually cut off your water as a punishment for wasting water. So you can see that the government does take it, water wastage, very seriously because it's such a serious issue in Jordan. So there are some actions that students are taking in Jordan to kind of limit their impacts on the environment. One example is, for example, in this school in Jordan, they are trying not to use any plastic which you throw away. So for example, like bringing your lunch in reusable containers, or not using plastic water bottles and instead using water bottles that you can use again. This is like a very simple way to limit plastic pollution of the environment. And plastic pollution is another issue for water pollution also, because if you find a lot of plastic in rivers, this can limit the amount of water that people can use from those rivers. So basically using reusable materials can help to keep water clean and help it to be used. Another example is the school in Jordan, which did this campaign called Drops Are Dots of Hope, which basically means like every drop of water counts. So they form these human water droplets, and they're trying to kind of advocate for people to be aware of water scarcity and to be careful about how much water they actually use. And it's, they also connected this with the World Water Day pretty much, to kind of elevate their advocacy. So this can be one way for students to be involved in environmental issues or in things like water scarcity, is to kind of do these advocacy projects and connect them with international events or international days like World Water Day, and be part of this global conversation about climate change and water scarcity. So this is a picture of Jordan. The government is taking water scarcity quite seriously in Jordan. They are making some efforts to raise awareness among the population about not using so much water, and trying to come up with some solutions for them to be able to supply more water. But it is a serious issue to be looking at, because it is definitely possible that Jordan could be in a situation where it runs out of water. So they're taking some steps to prevent that from happening. So since I will not be able to join you for this live summit, there are a couple of questions that I'd like to answer in advance for you, just in case there are questions that you might have. So one of them is, the question is, what do I personally think is the most effective way to tackle climate change that every one of us can do? And this is a very good question. A lot of people have different opinions on this. For me, I think that probably reducing our usage of cars and airplanes is one really effective way to bring down our carbon emissions, or contribute less to climate change. Because cars and airplanes use so much gas, and they really pollute the environment. So the less we can use them, the better. So instead, doing things like cycling, or taking public buses, public trains, carpooling if we have to with lots of people, so that we reduce our impacts on the environment that way. I think probably also eating less animal products. So especially beef and lamb have a big impact on the environment when they're being produced. So maybe, trying to eat a bit less meat can help to reduce the effects of climate change. But also, just being part of the conversation around climate change, and getting together with people and advocating for companies, especially, to reduce their impacts on the environment, because if fossil fuel companies, for example, which means like oil companies, for example, are actually responsible for around 70% of global carbon emissions. So they're responsible for 70% of the carbon which goes into the atmosphere and makes climate change worse. So if you can kind of advocate for these companies to change their practices, or for governments to put more regulations to protect the environment, I think these are also some really effective ways to tackle climate change that we can all be a part of. Another question is, if I could say anything to you all who are interested in global issues, what would I say? And I would say that if you are interested in global issues, that if you can, just travel to countries which are very unfamiliar to you. Push yourself outside of your comfort zone and kind of see what life is like in other countries. And this will give you really valuable insight, I think, into global issues, because it's one thing to hear about things in the news and read about them online, but when you're actually in another country, it brings you a different perspective on global issues. So I think that traveling, and especially traveling to countries which might have really different cultures or different languages than what you're used to, it's a really valuable way to have a better perspective and better insight into global issues, because you'll have real experience in those foreign countries. So that's the word of advice that I would give. So yeah, thank you very much for listening to this presentation. I apologize again that I cannot be with you for the live summit, but I'm very happy to be part of the summit and be part of this conversation that you all are having. Thank you so much.